We were reading the Poor Man of Nippur as a sect text in our Akkadian class, and
we were discussing a line and trying to piece together who's doing what action, because there's just loads of use of the he pronoun, which isn't particularly useful when you're trying to figure out where it fits in the story. In terms of context, we said, no, imagine if you're watching this as like a story or a play.
Kind of the thoughts were going around as, well, this is quite entertaining, it would be interesting to dramatise it.
And then this idea of, oh yes, we could do it as a play.
The things went on behind the scenes.
And then a couple of weeks later we got these emails about this screenplay of the Poor Man of Nippur.
So next thing you know, you're standing in John's with a goat. But, yeah.
Was it like being involved? It's actually very hectic though. But then, I mean, that's filmmaking in general. I think we have to make sure that everyone knows what is going on and that they could, tune in with one another in terms of how we work and when and where.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been quite an experience. It's the first time for me that I'm involved in something like that. I would never expect to be involved in something like this here in Cambridge, because from outside it looks very serious. And if you never
we do lots of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely a fun way to spend a week after exams.
So I play Gimil-Ninurta, who is the Poor Man of Nippur, who starts off, you see him weak and feeble, and he hasn't eaten anything for a while, and he thinks it would be a really good idea to sell everything he has and buy a goat to bring to the mayor, because he thinks the mayor is going to be really generous, but the mayor isn't, and so he decides to take revenge 3 times over the course of the film. So I think Gimil-Ninurta, he knows what he's doing, and he's planning throughout the whole film, and he's got a clear end goal in mind. And I think hopefully the audience wants to see how far he's going to push this plan, how far he's going to go in taking revenge.
The attendant that I was playing, I envisioned as sort of a yes-man figure, something perhaps along the lines of Malvolio from Twelfth Night, somebody who sort of considers themselves a little more important than they actually are based on who they're associated with.
I played the mayor of Nippur in the film, and I was trying to portray him as quite a sort of arrogantly buffoonish character, because that's what comes across in his portrayal in the text.
The attendants, although obviously their job is to be there in the service of the mayor and to do what the mayor wants, they're very much in it for themselves. They can see advantages for themselves for being in the court of a very high-ranking official, such as in the scene where the poor man brings the goat. They're also very excited at the thought of a feast with this goat along with the mayor, and this is the sort of advantages that being in this position can bring to them.
The young man has a very funny role, particularly in just his complete lack of understanding at what this mess he's ended up in, and he seems to have just sort of seemed like he thinks he's taking on quite an easy job, and this is easy money, I'm going to be paid a few bob to just knock on a door and say a few words, and then suddenly he's chased everywhere in this sort of wonderful scene.
Doing this whole Poor Man of Nippur thing obviously presented us with a huge number of artistic choices. Some of these pertain to the recitation of the Babylonian lines, so were we going to try and follow the rhythm of the poem insofar as we understand it? Gimil-Ninurta zikrashu, lumunu awilu. Or were we just going to speak the line, so that was one set of challenges, and then there were locations, so even if we could go to the city of Nippur, which would have been extremely expensive and really beyond our means, we wouldn't have found anything that looked like a fully fledged city, because the site of Nippur is now, very old and quite worn down. And then there was the question of how to assign lines. Now, you might think that's kind of obvious, because the mayor says the mayor's lines, and that's true. But the question was, what should we do with the narrator's lines? Because originally we were thinking, well, there's the narrator who narrates. But then it was Zach who pointed out, well, actually we could reassign some of the narrator's lines to characters within the story, e.g. an attendant or the gatekeeper, and we said that's a fantastic idea. You be the gatekeeper and you take a load of lines.
Surprised when we found out we actually had a live goat. We had lots of ideas of like a fake goat, a poorly photoshopped goat, even at one point a piece of paper with the sign for goat on it. Just, There was a lot of iterations.
I personally love gods. At a certain point, it was a little bit difficult because the god decided to escape from George Sand, and we were lucky that she, I guess, didn't realize that the door was open, because otherwise we would have lost the god forever.
I got my clothes nibbled a bit, but that just added to the look, I think, probably, yeah.
Gimil-Ninurta is supposed to say in front of the mayor, "What if I slaughtered this goat?" And the goat was perfectly calm and fine until that point. And then George, who was playing Gimil-Ninurta, said this line, and the goat basically ran the other way.
Watching the rehearsal so far for the story has given me a much stronger appreciation of the actual mechanics of it. So the actual characters properly interacting with each other it's quite one thing to read it on the page, and it's another to watch your friends pretend to be these characters from such an awful long time ago, and I think it's given me a better appreciation of perhaps understanding the motivations of the character.
Once you start reading it out loud and putting it in context and trying to make it make sense, you suddenly realise that many of the lines can be emphasised in slightly different ways. So, for example, the last line that says, "The mayor went into the city crawling," well, Babylonian doesn't use punctuations, so you can also read it as, "The mayor? He entered the city crawling." And you can see there's a lot of scope for dramatic effect and pauses and intonation, and I think we captured some of that, but it's a process that set us thinking.
Interpreting something for the screen, or for anything for that matter, it makes you think about things critically in a way that you don't really necessarily do when you're simply translating. So you have to think about structure, you have to think about characters, you have to think about questions like who do we root for, and potentially why is the story constructed in this way.
Acting it out and the process of filming and rehearsing just really made it clear that just how vibrant and human these characters are.
So who knows? Watch this space, and we might come back to you in a couple of years with The Poor Man of Somewhere Else.
I went to a department outreach event that was it was partially at the British Museum, and it was like an Egypt and Mesopotamia conference, and I just found it absolutely fascinating.